Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We're doing our library update for March 1st, 2023. These are all the board games that entered the library during the month of February, all of the expansions, the pre-orders, upgrades, etc. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. And for those of you already subscribed, thank you so much for the continuous support. Let's talk about all the board games that entered the SideGame Library during the month of February 2023. Starting off with all of the new arrivals, we have Deck of Wonders. This is a dueling card game where you're going to be playing 1 or 2 players against an AI opponent. You'll use a shared deck and you'll use half the cards and the enemy will use the other half. You'll flip them around. You'll go back and forth playing 1 card at a time, usually trying to deplete the enemy's life points to 0. Now the system overall is not one that I can recommend because it does feel pretty scripted and on rails. Every turn you're only getting to draw a single card and it feels like you know exactly what to do with that card. Not a lot of decision space here, so it feels like the game is playing me most of the time. My favorite parts about this game are the second and third boss that you can actually fight though. There's this legacy system where you can unlock them. I'm going to say just skip that, open up that second and third boss because they do give you alternate win conditions and they feel like you're having a little bit more choice, but unfortunately I think that that overall feeling of being on rails permeates the entire experience. So not one that I can recommend. That is Deck of Wonders. Next up here we have the Kittenburg expansion for Etherfields. This one I do recommend quite a bit. It has some of the best art in Etherfields period and it gives you 2 different missions in Kittenburg. It's filled with cats with amazing artwork. You're getting to interact with the citizenry, but I'm not going to give any spoilers here, but it is one that I strongly recommend. Go check out the Kittenburg expansion for Etherfields. Next up is Ready, Set, Bet. This is a real-time betting game where you're placing your tokens on this board in the center, trying to get a large payout by betting on different horses. You'll also get these VIP cards. Those are my favorite part of the game. They're special abilities at the end of each round, and it makes you a little bit unique, and you'll get to use them every single race after that. You're trying to make the most money by making the right calls. Now, I do want to give you a quick notice that if you're going to play with an app on this game, make sure you got a pretty big screen because I do think it detracts from the experience a little bit. You got this awesome app that's going to run the horses for you, but if you're playing on a small screen, everybody's squinting and trying to see where the horses actually are at any given time. So definitely play on a big screen. Otherwise, you can have somebody play with the board. There's pieces and dice that you'll be rolling to simulate the horses moving. So I do recommend that you either play with a big screen or do have a player actually rolling the dice and moving the horses. Now, overall, how does this stack up compared to other games? I think that it's missing that tension that a lot of these other racing games have, my favorite being Camel Up, and I think that it's just missing that in Ready, Set, Bet. I do think that it's a pretty fun game overall, but there's a lot of times where you're just sitting there waiting for the app to run out, and that's kind of boring to me, unfortunately. When you should be engaged and excited for the entire experience, a lot of times you'll have all of your bets out on the board and just sort of waiting for that timer to run out. And when real-time games have you just sitting there doing nothing, I feel that that sort of misses the mark on that real-time experience. Still one that I do recommend to give a try. It's still at a 7 for me. I'll pull this out with large groups with that large screen or running the race myself because I do think it is an interesting experience that you should give a try at least once. So that is Ready, Set, Bet. Next up is Guards of Atlantis II, and this has become one of my new favorite games in these past 3 weeks. I've played it 16 times at all of the different player counts from 2 all the way up to 10, and I've tried all the champions except for 3, even playing 2-handed in some cases, just to see how it felt and to experience everything, really. I'm excited to dive into the different modules that are present with the Kickstarter version. So in Guards of Atlantis II, you're playing a MOBA-inspired game where you're trying to eliminate your opponent's heroes or control this minion battle that's happening in the center. But the standout of this game are the cards and the way that the card system works. Every turn, you're only picking a single card in your hand out of 5. So you only ever have 5 cards, and you're trying to anticipate what your opponents are doing based on the initiative values of the cards and when you can actually use your actions. Your stronger cards are usually pretty slow, so you're trying to time things just right to make sure that your action goes off without a hitch. So you're playing your cards in a way that you can mitigate disaster, but also coordinating and cooperating with your team members, trying to make sure that your cards line up, and when it happens, it feels so good. Every turn is a difficult decision, knowing what to play, when to play, and based on how you're destroying minions and the different heroes, you will earn coins, which allow you to level up at the end of each round, which means you can be adaptive in the way that you're changing your character's abilities and strategize based on what's happening on the board. It's such a great experience, and it's one that I think you need to give a try. The 6-player and the 4-player count have been my favorite ways to play. I think that team-based communication is something that I was looking for in our library, and I think that Guards of Atlantis II is my favorite in that team-based category. Next up, we have Elgnirk, which is Kringle spelled backwards for Kingdom Death Monster, the Chaos Elf. And this is a new character that you're actually going to be putting onto the hunt board when you decide to include it in your games. You're supposed to pull it out during the holiday season, so I've gone ahead and assembled this one so it's ready to go when we're ready to play some Kingdom Death Monster. So I love this addition and how it's an actual gameplay thing you're interacting with during one of the phases and not just a couple of gear cards. So this really went a step above and beyond, and I think that's something awesome for Kingdom Death Monster. It says Elgnirk. Next up is Wizards of the Grimoire. This is actually provided to us by the publisher, Grimoire Games, for review purposes. I'll put a whole review on the channel later down the line, but for right now, I want to let you know that I am enjoying this game. It's a spellcasting dueling game where you have this market of cards in the center of the two players, and you're going to be drafting cards from there, and then every subsequent turn, you're going to draft one of the spells and then start casting all of the spells that you've collected. There's a lot of counterplay that's baked into this setup where everything is available out in that middle there, and a new card is being introduced every time. It seems a little overwhelming when you look at it at first glance, but it's actually pretty dang consumable because you have 10 cards to read, and then you're only introducing one card at a time, and you'll start getting familiar with the way that these cards work. Some cards will be able to counter others, and so you're drafting this different strategy and seeing how they work with the cards that you're taking. I love the different spells and the interactions between them and the clear counterplay that's present, the mana system. It's a really smart game, and I'm excited to play more of it. So more reviews coming on that later. That is Wizards of the Grimoire. Next up, we have Skytear Horde. This is a tower defense card game where you're going to be generating mana every turn, using that mana to play allies and spells, and hopefully taking down all of your opponent's monsters before they're able to destroy your castle or make you run out of cards in your deck. I love this system here and how easy it is to set up and play. You've got a bunch of different modules that you can combine, and there's actual meaningful choices in this one with how you're playing your cards, when to play your cards, and when you can actually take losses. You're juggling those two different loss conditions of running out of cards, and so knowing when to take hits and when to maximize the efficiency of your cards is some of the strategy that you'll develop as you play. I'm enjoying this one, and I want more expansions to see how that deck building can evolve, but for right now, this is one I do recommend. I'm having a good time with this, particularly solo. Now, I don't recommend the competitive version of this. It comes with a way to play 2 players and competitive. I tried the competitive, and I played the regular side, and it felt like I was just playing a solo game, honestly, but there were some points where I couldn't interact with what my opponent was doing because there's some moments where they can play face down cards, and it feels pretty bad when you just can't interact, and it sort of removed the puzzle nature of the solo experience. So that was pretty unfortunate. And then on the other side, I played this with my brother, and he tried out the competitive. He was the enemy, and he said that his choices felt super scripted. So that's kind of unfortunate that both sides of that equation didn't feel that satisfying. So I do recommend this one as a solo game. Don't really want to play it as multiplayer again, and there is a cooperative version, but it feels like you were just playing the solo game with another person having their own deck and then splitting up the card draws between the two. So I think I'm going to keep this one as that solo. Maybe I'll try it cooperative in the future, but I am enjoying this one as a solo experience. Next up is the original Skytear. I actually bundled this with the Skytear Horde pledge because I wanted to give a try to more games in the Skytear universe. I was riding pretty high on the MOBA experience with Guards of Atlantis II, and this one does some similar things. You'll have some lane battles that you're managing, you'll have 3 heroes that you're controlling, but this one adds 3 objectives that you'll also have each game that will change up the win conditions and push you towards different strategies. Now, unfortunately, I don't really have a favorite part of this game as there was nothing really shiny that I was excited to play. The thing I was most excited for was the deck system, how the cards are going to determine the abilities of your characters. You have mana costs, and as the game progresses, you get more mana with your different characters. So you're trying to draw cards to use special abilities and spell, which will turn the tide in your favor. But I found everything pretty underwhelming, unfortunately. The actions with the heroes were clean, the systems made sense, but nothing too exciting to get me to come back and play it again and again. It very much felt like I was playing like a standard starter deck for like Pokemon, TCG, or Yu-Gi-Oh!, where you're getting these basic concepts down, you're understanding what's going on, but I'm sure that more exciting things happen when you dive into the expansions and deck building. Unfortunately, the core game just wasn't gripping enough for me to be excited to go down this rabbit hole and buy a bunch of expansions for this game, but I'm happy to try somebody else's copy who's refined their decks and made this an experience that's going to be a bit more gravitating. Unfortunately, I can't recommend Skytear, but I can recommend that you go check out the GameFound page for Guards of Atlantis II. That will be out in April, but if you subscribe now for like notifications and stuff, they'll give you an additional tiebreaker coin that's metal. So that's a pretty cool gift for just subscribing and following the campaign. So if you're looking for a MOBA experience, go check out that one, but can't recommend Skytear, unfortunately. The next game here is Frosthaven, and this game is awesome. I was waiting for this game for quite a while. I saw that people were getting it back in December, but it's finally arrived, and I've played about 11 scenarios of it now with my wife, Ariana. We played through the entirety of Gloomhaven together, and now we're trying it with Frosthaven. It's not going to change your mind if you don't like Gloomhaven, but Frosthaven truly is an evolution of this system in all the best ways, giving you a new campaign experience that has settlement building and resource gathering that you're going to bring back and building buildings, getting special abilities and effects, but you'll also have characters that are truly well developed. I'm not going to get into any spoilers here, but I'm going to show you the character that I've been playing for 9 of my missions. I've already retired him at this point, and I'm playing one of the unlockable characters, so no spoilers there. But the Blinkblade was my first character, and oh my gosh, it was so cool. So the Blinkblade is this quattral character that has time manipulation, and it's got all these cards that when you look at them at first, you're like, oh my gosh, what is happening? But the way it works is every turn you decide if you're going slow or fast, and if you're slow, you use the right abilities of the card. If you're fast, you use the left abilities of the card, and you always use the middle stuff. But it's going to augment your actions based on what you choose. So for example, if you decide to use this temporal displacement card, you get to move 2 if you're going fast, and then loot, and then you get to attack at range 2 with 3 damage. But if you go slow, you just get a single loot, and you're going much slower on the initiative here, and you're attacking for 3, but you're only attacking for 2 because you get -1. There are ways that you can mitigate this, and you're sort of charging up your speed as you play. It's such a gratifying experience. The first time you play is pretty overwhelming because you're like, oh my gosh, what does my stuff do? But after you play just a single hand of your cards, you're understanding the connections and the purpose for each of these, and then the next time you play that hand of cards, you feel so empowered, and then you level up, and you're getting new stuff, you're modifying how you're approaching each scenario. This character is so much fun, and oh god, I had so much fun with this. This Blinkblade character is so cool, and most of the characters in Frosthaven have design thoughts like this, where they've really pushed the boundary of the Gloomhaven system and giving you characters that are going to be truly memorable in this design space. So amazing game. That is Frosthaven. The last new arrival here is the Rogue Hero Pack from Marvel Champions. We did not receive the Gambit Hero Pack. We've got a bunch of stuff on its way, so it'll be here on Friday, unfortunately. So it has been delayed, but I could talk about Rogue. I played 5 games with her just before recording this video, and my initial impressions are pretty dang positive. I love the way that she can use her touched condition to gain the abilities and traits of her different cards, which allows you to overlay these different decks that you might not be able to have made before. You can also do some really cool interactions with the Mystic tags or different traits. So I've been playing this leadership deck recently where I'm playing Mystic allies there in the form of what's his name? Adam Warlock as well as Kalu, and those 2 characters allow you to gain the Mystic trait, which means you can play Mystic upgrades, Mystic spells. You're losing out on some of the other special abilities, but you're also getting to recur things like Summoning Spell, because you have the superpower adaptation, which if you attach it to your own leadership card, you can bring back a leadership event from your discard pile, which means you can keep on spamming it. Oh, it feels so good. So you can do some dumb stuff like that, and I really appreciated that with Wanda Maximoff, with Scarlet Witch, where you could play cards out of color just because you were so efficient. But Rogue allows you to create a deck that's all based around sort of breaking the game and combining these X-Men allies with other traits and archetypes. So a lot of fun with Rogue, and I'm sure there's going to be crazy amounts of deck building with her in the upcoming months. So that is Rogue for Marvel Champions, the Hero Pack. So those are all of the new arrivals. Let's get into the promos and upgrades for our library. Starting off with the Man vs. Meeple promo pack. It finally arrived, and my gosh, so many small little promos. I already put them in all of their appropriate games. We got things for Fantasy Realms, Terraforming Mars, but my favorite one has to be the one for Hadrian's Wall. It gives you a new path card, as well as a new way to draw path cards at the start of each round. And next we have the Gameboy Geek promos. These are all from the BGG store, starting with one for Micro Macro Crime City All In. It's just another case. Love this Where's Waldo detective solving game. Next we have the new cards for Aquatica. These are new Lords. These are just going to give you more asymmetric cards at the beginning of each game. Awesome. And then lastly, we have the Mosaic extra technology cards. These are more things that you can buy, giving you symbols, just adding to that variability just ever so slightly. Next, we have the new playmats from Kalsa Brain Games. These are the Spellground mats. We got one of these Homage light blue Spellground mats, and it's pretty dang stunning. I love the frosted tone that it has, and it brings out that nice blue to whatever you're playing. So like this for especially those 2-player dueling games, it's been a hit with the Wizards of the Grimoire. Next up, we have the folded space insert for Frosthaven, and I was pretty excited to get this because I love getting an organizer that's got going to help with setting up the game and facilitating it while it's being played. But unfortunately, I was pretty dang unimpressed with this one, and I don't recommend this at all. I think it's a bad insert. Most of the pieces are placed in spots that honestly hinder the game setup. Like, all the monster cards here are organized away from their tokens, and so that way when you're playing, you have to actually go to all these different areas to just assemble one unit. Honestly, just use plastic bags. And if you're unfamiliar, Gloomhaven comes with an insert included, a plastic one that works way better than this one. Why would you spend money on this? I'm pretty disappointed with this. So what we've done is we've taken the pieces that work pretty well. So like the item storage is fine, the event deck is fine, but I think we actually removed, I would say 90% of this insert and have put it in different games or recycled some of it. So it just doesn't work well, and that insert that comes with the game is just the better option. I was really frustrated with this because it took me a long time to assemble. I'd never tried one of these. I've mainly done the wooden ones, and it was frustrating because after all that hard work of assembling it, I felt like I just wasted so much time. So I can't recommend this one at all. I think you should really just use the original Frosthaven insert that comes with it, as well as just a BCW box and plastic bags for all of the monster components. So that is the folded space insert for Frosthaven. Now, continuing on the folded space train, we also have the map archive here for Frosthaven, and I do think this one actually works pretty dang well. You get this large container like so, and it's got all of these different flaps that are organized for your different map tiles, and this is super helpful for facilitating the setup and keeping things nice and organized. It also has the artwork for Frosthaven, so you're able to get things going and be like, okay, this is where this tile is, easy to pull out. I do like the map archive a lot, but stay away from the folded space insert for Frosthaven. Next up, we have the perfect fit deck boxes for burger tokens. We got the 80 sleeved count ones, and these were for Guards of Atlantis II. That way we can store all of the player components in a single box, give it to the player, and they're ready to go. I love this system of organization. I use it for Unmatched with the characters, have all their cards, their dial, their miniature, just in one small box, and they're able to store everything right there and see everything at a glance. So love the system for these, and I think it works just a bit better than the included system, and it also is future-proof, so it will fit the new 10 heroes in the next GameFound campaign. So I love this organization system, and I'm excited to show you all it when I do the the organizing video in the near future here. And I do want to quickly mention with these perfect fit deck boxes, yes, it says $25, but you get 25 of them. So that's something to be aware of. It's like $1 a deck box, and I love these. They work perfectly for any size you need, and you can customize the size on the side here. So those are the perfect fit deck boxes from Burger Tokens. And the next item are coin capsules for a variety of our games. We got them for Guards of Atlantis 2 for the different tokens, really bling it up. I really like that game, so I want to make sure it's a super nice quality version. And then we also use them for Ready Set Bet for the player tokens. They add a nice heft to those betting tokens as you're putting them out on the board. You got that clack on the board, feels super good. So I love this brand. It works pretty dang well. Just make sure you get an X-Acto knife too, so you can trim down those edges to make sure they're nice and smooth on the side. We also picked up some more Architect tubes. You simply unscrew the top, slide the playmat in, and they're perfect for identifying clearly what your large playmats go to. They've got a spot on the top where you can unscrew them and affix your own art, so you can easily see, oh, okay, that one's for the new Guards of Atlantis 2 playmats. So I picked up 2 more of those. And that brings us to our last section. We have all of our pre-orders, starting off with Expeditions. This is the new game from Stonemaier Games that's set in the Scythe world. I'm excited to see what they do with this, as the world of Scythe was my favorite part of the original game. I like the world building that came from it, and it was cool to explore it during the Rise of Fenris campaign as well. So it looks pretty straightforward in the way it's working as you're moving around this tile-based system, interacting with cards, building up, leveling up your mech by solving quests. Sounds pretty dang interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. Next up is Andromeda's Edge. This looks to be an evolution of the Dwellings of Eldervale system by Luke Laurie. Looking forward to this worker placement game where you're going to be playing in space this time. I like this concept of having these different tech tracks. It reminds me of something like Gaia Project, that lateral move, but you're also constricting the board by having those pre-printed spaces. Looking forward to seeing how the asymmetric factions play in this design space. That's Andromeda's Edge. Next up, we have Alice is Missing's expansion, Silent Falls. Alice is Missing is my favorite RPG experience. It's an innovative design where you play a silent role-playing game. You've got this timer in the form of cards that will reveal prompts as you play, but the conversation is done through texting and on your phone. Now, this is going to have you making group chats, talking to different players, and you take on this persona of a high school student who have had their friend Alice gone missing. It's up to you to discover where she is and hopefully be able to save her in time. The expansion adds new cards, new roles, ways to explore and open up the storytelling. I'm looking forward to this one extremely. That is Alice is Missing, the new Silent Falls expansion. And finishing off the video, we have Ascension Tactics, the miniatures deck building game. This is Ascension Tactics Inferno. It's a standalone expansion that gives you new champions, new cards, as well as an entire new type of cards to mix in with your other content. It's got a new board, new missions, new scenarios. I'm looking forward to this one as it's one of my favorite games from last year, with a solo mode that works extremely well, as well as that 2-player skirmish is my preferred way to play. You also can get all of the content from the previous Kickstarter, but we're just getting all of the new stuff. I love this system, and I'm looking forward to the new champions, the new card types, and the new scenarios. More ways to play. Love it. So that is Ascension Tactics Inferno. And that's it. Those are all of the games that entered the library during the month of February for SideGame LLC. I'm curious to hear what entered your personal collections. What games are you most excited for us to talk about here on the channel? What games are you excited to play yourself? And what should we be looking at getting into our library next month? Thank you so much for watching. SideGame Strong